My husband, 32, and I, female 24, just got married 3 weeks ago, and we're currently celebrating our honeymoon. The plan was to travel to different countries in Europe, Asia, and Africa for 2 months. We're currently in Spain, and we're supposed to take a plane to Morocco in 2 days. However, my husband wants to cut the trip short and return to our home now. The thing is, his brother is in a horrible situation. His wife and daughter had a car crash and they're in the hospital. The kid is fine, but his wife has to be a little longer in the hospital, that's all I know. So I told my husband that I understood he wanted to support his brother, but that he's not a doctor, so he can't do anything to help, really. And his brother's wife is fine, she probably only has a broken leg, so she needs some more days in the hospital. I told him to just call his brother and ask to talk with his wife so he can send her his best wishes. And that's all he can do, honestly. His parents and his in-laws are helping with the kids, so there's really nothing they need help with. I told him our honeymoon was important because it was a time for us to enjoy ourselves and spend together. He wasn't having any of it. He called me selfish, and then he kicked me out of our bedroom. I had to ask for a new one until he decided to let me in again. He told me that he was leaving tomorrow because he needed to support his brother and told me I could continue the trip by myself. But that's not the point of the honeymoon at all. I told him so, and he said that if he'd known how witchy I was, he would never have dated me. Am I really wrong here? Edit. We met in Thailand, dated for 6 months, and went to America to get married, but I'm not a citizen yet. We were going to live in America, but I'm not sure now. My family is from Thailand and lives there. They're happy with the marriage and they like my husband. My dad approved of him and said he's good. Sometimes my husband shares information with me, but sometimes he tells me I won't understand or I don't need to know. He's very private. He doesn't allow me in the room when he speaks to his family, so really I don't know anything other than what my husband told me. I can't ask his brother because I don't have his phone number. Girl, you went to the US on a tourist visa and got married. OP, do you have any evidence that your marriage is legal? Did you obtain a marriage license? Did you sign anything at any time before, during, or after the ceremony? Are you out of your damn mind? You got married after dating this stranger for 6 months and he doesn't let you talk to his family? Either way, please get the manager of the hotel to accompany you to his room and go inside with you while you get your stuff and passport. This is completely a not the idiot situation. Her husband is refusing to disclose the condition of his sister-in-law because OP doesn't need to know and he doesn't want to discuss it with her. Yeah, now I know why a 32-year-old marries someone in their early 20s. Much easier to control. No woman his age would put up with that BS. And the husband doesn't allow her to be in the room when he calls his family to get updates, so she doesn't even know anything beyond sister-in-law and niece were in a car accident. Unhinged behavior from this guy. OP's husband probably led OP and her family, Thais, to think he's a wealthy American, and in reality he doesn't have the money actually to have a 2-month-long honeymoon. Most likely he came up with a story on why they needed to return to the States and refused to let her communicate with anyone in his family or tell her what was wrong with sister-in-law. That was my thought. He's out of money. He lied to her and her family about his financial status and probably never even booked the whole trip. So let's focus on your safety, OP. Do you have your passport and driver's license? If not, go to your country's embassy and consulate. Ask your hotel for help to get there if need be. Do you have your plane tickets, hotel reservation info, and transport info? If not, get them. Do you have access to a credit debit card in your name only? Do you have access to your financial accounts? You need this to get home. Can you contact your family and friends to tell them about the situation? You need help to get home. Can you contact whoever performed the wedding ceremony to ask if they filed the marriage certificate, license, whatever makes it legal in your country? If they have, ask them how to annul it immediately. If not, and there are no legal documents, you dodged another bullet. Do not go back to this person. He is not healthy for you. I'm 48 years old, married but child-free by choice. It's something my wife and I agreed on early in our relationship. We both have pretty good jobs and can afford many expensive items and activities. Obviously, I attribute this to our jobs and the fact that we're child-free and live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I own a manufacturing plant that was given to me by my father. On that property, I store 4 classic cars that I have bought and restored. I've always been a car guy. I plan to buy another car in the next year too. I have one sister who is younger than me and never made the best decisions in life. She has a boyfriend who she lives with after getting divorced twice. She's also in her early 40s. She has 2 kids who already seem smarter than their mom. She makes an okay living, but she's the breadwinner. Her boyfriend, whom she lives with, spends most of his time smoking and playing Xbox. He's always looking for a new job, or blaming the capitalist system for him not having a job. Her daughter, Tween, is a very good singer. I don't have an ear for talent, but to me she is very good. My sister has wanted to enroll her in lessons with a private coach but cannot afford it. She's asked me to help out since she's embarrassed to ask our parents. She also doesn't speak to the father of her daughter. I declined politely until she made a comment about my money and cars. Just another must be nice comment I'm all too sick of hearing. Here is where I may have made an idiot comment. I said, maybe if your boyfriend can put down the smoke for all of 10 minutes, he can help you out. And I have 5 cars, I'll buy another 5 before I give you a dime. I said her daughter isn't my responsibility. She's got a mother and a father, and if they can't figure it out, it doesn't fall on my shoulders. My sister called my wife and told her how mean I was to her. My wife wants to give us the money, but I don't want to. Sure, we can afford it, but I'm not my sister's welfare. Last bit, I'm sure some of you will comment on how I refer to her daughter or my niece. They live in another state and have for the entirety of her life. I don't see my sister or her kids much at all. I don't really know her kids too well. I send them birthday and Christmas gifts, but I'm not close to them. Edit, my sister could have had a stake in the business, but she didn't want to work there. I've worked for my dad all my life and learned the trade. She never did. She knew she wouldn't be getting anything with it, and she was okay with that. I've given financial support to her before. So it's been years of making snide and passive-aggressive comments by the sister, the same sister that is too ashamed or too chicken, or just maybe, has depleted the parents' money train because of her constant begging. Maybe she's made too many snippy comments to the parents too, and they finally had enough. Now, if she'd been nicer all these years, Opie probably wouldn't hesitate to help. Opie took on the family business. Opie has made it a continued success. Opie made personal choices that resulted in having a comfortable life. Nobody is obligated to help raise or fund their siblings' children. Sister has a habit of making not-so-smart life choices. That is not Opie's problem. Could Opie have been nicer, less insulting? Sure, but even the most patient people finally have enough, and that's what this sounds like. Not the idiot. This is a huge part. It wasn't a mistake not to learn the company business, it was a choice. One of my younger brothers got into the family business. It's worth a lot of money, but I will never see it as my parents giving him hundreds of thousands of dollars. He had to bust his butt dealing with my micromanaging father, losing all his weekends, late-night inventory, and being called in whenever they were short-handed. They didn't give him anything. He busted his butt for it. It takes work to take over a business. So many times things come crashing down when things are passed down. Hope he earned it if things are still running well. It's also a classic, if you give a mouse a cookie scenario. If he gives the sister money for the niece, then the sister will likely keep asking for money for the kids, knowing he'll give in because it's for the kids. There's no winning for OP here. My ex and I have 2 kids together, female and male teens. While I love both of my kids, I don't like the way my son behaves, and I believe it's my ex's fault. She favours our son to the point that he's become really spoiled and doesn't treat his sister well. We finalised our divorce recently and decided both kids are old enough to choose. My son wanted to rotate between homes each week. My daughter said she wants to think about it. Later in private, she told me that she wanted to stay with me full time, but she also didn't want a brother there. So after thinking about it for a while, I told my son and ex that I would take my daughter full time and my son should stay with her. He's not welcome at my home until I see some changes in his behaviour and he starts being nice to his sister. They think I'm an idiot. You are the idiot for blaming your son's behaviour on your wife and choosing your daughter over your son. It sounds like the whole family might benefit from therapy. Have you considered that abandoning your son might create additional mental health issues in your family? Step up and get involved in your son's behaviour rather than finger-wagging at your son and ex-wife as if you had nothing to do with it. If the wife treated the son as the golden child and prioritised him over the daughter, what should OP have done? Forcing her to treat both of them equally? And how exactly? OP is protecting his daughter from abusive bullying caused by the son. This bullying will not stop unless the ex makes changes. If the ex enables him, he will only get worse. I'm not usually for parents picking between their kids, but you have to protect your kids from each other. I think this story is way too intentionally vague to make an accurate judgment. We need to know precisely what your son is doing that you classify as abusive. I'm leaning more towards you are the idiot. How about you start trying to actually raise your son? How exactly is it just the mom's fault? Did you have no say in his parenting? You're pathetic for blaming your own child for you being a crappy, inattentive parent. My son makes fun of his sister's speech impediment to the point she refuses to talk around him. Also, once he was aware of her self-esteem issues, he started calling her ugly all the time. Also, my son doesn't have a single chore to do at home, and if I give him one, my ex will do it instead. OMG, the kid is purposely making his sister feel bad about herself, and your ex is an enabler. You are not the idiot for protecting your daughter. What kind of mistreatment may she get from your son if she doesn't want to stay near him or with her mother? Agree. If your son is making your daughter feel unsafe and her mom is not protecting her, then you need to step up. These people don't read or understand what the man is saying. He said he tried to punish his son, but the mother would overrule him. You can talk until you're blue in the face, but if one parent allows bad behavior in a child unless you can get them away from that parent, you are fighting a losing battle. I love my wife very much. She's a smart and capable woman who leaves me in the dust in most categories. However, my wife cannot cook at all. She burned water once. She was boiling water for rice and it had oil in it. She got distracted and the water boiled off. Then the oil caught fire. Then she threw water on it and nearly burned her parents' house down. She can follow instructions on microwave food. She can use the microwave to heat leftovers. That's about it. Her mom and dad gave up trying to teach her. I love cooking. I enjoy making tasty meals from scratch when I have the time. One of my go-to meals is fried chicken thighs and waffles. I use my dad's waffle recipe and they come out light and crispy. Perfect. I don't always make them though because it takes time. I cheat sometimes and use pre-mix. They are heavier and kind of floppy, not crisp. So I was making breakfast yesterday and the kids were at the table. I have the chicken going and I'm making waffles. It's a good morning. My wife decided to help and covered the waffles in foil so they stayed warm. They did. They also steamed and got soft. So I finished making myself a waffle, served my food and left the kitchen. She can finish everything off. She does this constantly. I'll be making steaks and I'm resting them and she throws them back on the grill to keep warm. I'll have the chicken fully cooked and tender and she'll turn up the heat and dry it out, just to make sure. I am sure. She approached me yesterday for the 50th time and asked why I always walk away when she tries to help. I explained for the 50th time that I enjoy making good food and that her help is almost universally detrimental to the meal I'm trying to make. She thinks I'm an idiot for caring so much about how food feels and tastes. She can do whatever she wants when it's her turn to cook. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. How many times should you explain that food is meant to be a certain way? I'm not a cook, but I think she would drive me crazy. Too many hands in the kitchen winds up making the chef angry. Let's be clear, she's not trying to help, she's just interfering. If she legitimately wanted to help, she would come into the kitchen when you're cooking and say, "How can I help?" and listen to your responses and follow through. But she doesn't want to be helpful, she wants to control some aspect of what you're doing. So she interferes with your process, every single time, even if it literally means making the food significantly less tasty. And then she defends herself with the ridiculous argument that you shouldn't care how food tastes, which is about as illogical as it gets. Gently, I would suggest that your wife needs therapy to figure out why she can't just ask you how she can be helpful, but rather needs to interfere anytime you try to cook. Is she jealous that you're a better cook? Does she have control issues in general? Because something is going on here. I, female 23, recently went on a camping trip with 3 other friends, my guy friend Theo and 2 others, a guy and a girl. At first, I shared a tent with my female friend, but after a few days she and the other guy decided they wanted to share one instead, so Theo and I ended up sharing a tent. I was okay with this and he seemed fine too, but when the time actually came and we went to bed, he seemed really uncomfortable and tense. He kept tossing and turning and trying to make conversation, which was terribly awkward. At one point, I told him that I'd like to fall asleep now and he said okay, but he kept fidgeting and I was so tired from the day, so it was just annoying. So I decided to grab some blankets and told him that I'd sleep outside. He said that it wasn't a good idea, and I told him I'd rather get a good night's sleep. We started whispering in the dark, and I told him to sleep outside, so it worked out for everyone. He was unhappy with this and told me I couldn't just kick him out. I told him I'd do it, but he didn't want this either. At this point, I was truly fed up and I asked him to offer solutions. He ultimately went to sleep outside. In the morning, I woke up and he was in the tent with me, but grumbled that he just came in the morning. I felt energized and well rested, but he looked super disheveled, and you could tell he didn't sleep at all. Now he just keeps giving me weird glances and seems annoyed. When our friends found out what happened, they called me mean for making him sleep outside and said that we could have solved the issue differently. Am I the idiot? Edit. Theo talks about me a lot, but in a jokey way. For example, he often points out how different we are. I'm more of a homebody bookworm, he's the complete opposite, and that it would cause many problems in marriage. Yes, marriage. I just laughed it off and never took it seriously. Info, you do realise that the other guy and the other girl were purposefully trying to hook you up with Theo, right? And the reason he was fidgeting and super anxious was that they'd been hyping him up to make a move, but he was too afraid to make said move. That is also why he didn't want you sleeping outside and why he didn't want to sleep outside. It's also why he came back to the tent. This was a setup. And he talks about marriage? I'm sorry, my dude. I think your guy friend has a crush on you, to say the least. But I suspect he's shy and scared. Sleeping in the same tent with a girl he has a crush on. I think your friends are also to blame for putting you both in a tough spot, especially since your original sleeping plans were changed and you've never slept in the same room as this person. They shouldn't call you mean for also being the ones that made the situation happen in the first place. You offered to sleep outside, but he wanted to do the gentleman thing and take your place. It ended up being his choice, but maybe he expected you to change your mind and invite him back in, and that is why he was grumpy the next morning. Either way, not your problem. Next time, have your own tent.